How do you healthy, feel full, curb the cravings? I need some help. I'm going through a difficult time. I'm up about 5 pounds, so we're also heading off on a vacation, which is a cruise, and that always worries me. I'm scared of cruises because there's too much good food and too much of everything. So um, right now, I need some help, and Angelique's going to just help us along with Brad. Is that how to curb that appetite and how to get control again? So take it away.
All right, so today we're talking about eating in a way that supports our heart health, our weight, and our long-term well-being.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Angeli, for that introduction. We just have a quick rapid fire question for Dr. Curnew. Angeli, you can also try to answer them if you like. True and false, they're not too tough, okay? First one is ultra processed foods will make you gain weight despite it being similar to other foods that are minimally processed if you control the calories and the macros.
That's very interesting because roughly 80% of the food is made by Big Ten corporations, and we think of the corporations being bad people because they develop addictive foods. And depending on the processing, is that most processed foods that are really good, very tasty, um, make us eat more calories than we want. But we're also going to talk about how processing food can be actually a good thing as well because you actually preserve food longer shelf life. So it's both good and bad. And right now is 7 out of 10 Canadian adults are overweight. So we have to think about how we use our food supply better. So the answer is that we think of processed food being a bad thing. Most of the time it is, but not always is my answer.
Yeah, so they've done some interesting research out of the NIH, the National Institute of Health, and their labs, and they found a little bit of an interesting answer. Is that independent of calories, macros, even how the food looks, ultra-processed foods tend to make people overeat a little bit. So that's true in that aspect. Second one, cravings are neurobiologically distinct from hunger. Is that true or false?
Yeah, that's you need a lawyer here, but that's probably a true statement. The way I remember most of these things is that one intervention is not going to change your diet and lifestyle. It's a combination of all the above. Like the Toronto Blue Jays, it's not one player that's going to win the World Series, that combination. And when I think about, first of all, ultra processed food, most of the time you tend to eat 500 extra calories a day. And this difference between, cravings, learned behavior, and what's happening to the neural environment is very complicated. So there are distinct things that we're learning about. And one of the things is that most of us, if I remember correctly, the food industry is making an extra 1,000 calories a day compared to what we admit to eating. And I don't think we're stockpiling our calories. So there's a lot of extra food out there. We tend to really, I know, eat more than I think, and I think most of us do that as well. So that's also another true statement. And diet quality, yeah. Um, what I'm trying to do is eat more real food. So right now I'm having a salad. I have some corn on the cob right now. I'm trying to have a little bit kombucha watered down with some little bit of water. And I put a little diet Pepsi in there just to get a little extra fizz there. So I'm trying hard to change my environment and eat real foods as much as I can. But boy, uh, one of the foods that's killing me is whole wheat, good bread. To me, that's one of the most addictive foods in the world. And I think for me, I wish bread was a banned substance. I wish I had no access to it, even the healthy versions. But keep telling us more.
Yeah, that's a challenge, hence the saying the best things since sliced bread because it's taken a lot of people out of famine, but in this day and age, it's a problem, of course. And you've covered the other ones pretty well, actually, so that most people find it difficult to accurately estimate their calorie intake, and that's the other true statement. And the last one is that diet quality, as you said, is a team effort. It's not one thing. It's not, oh, if you have enough protein, your diet quality is great. It's a combination of all the above. Who you eat it with, when you eat it, like nighttime eating, skipping breakfast. So it's a combination of many things. So it's a complex strategy. And we're going to simplify it tonight as much as we can a little bit. All right. Next slide. This is a very interesting diagram I came across, and it puts it quite nicely how the collision in between the human appetite system and all the other things on the left that, like an asteroid, is hitting your brain, the ultra-processed foods, the hyperpalatability, the pizzas, the chips. And if you think about the grocery stores now, not sure about the percentage, but a huge percentage of it is ultra-processed foods. And I was telling Angela how someone's going to have to buy these. They're foods, someone's going to eat them. And so in that food environment, how are you gonna eat healthy? You just have to work hard at it, right? When your environment is like that, and there are grocery stores or cities where people just don't have um, as much produce. That's rare to see nowadays, but a lot of places still have some produce sections. But I've seen some of those cases too, where the community is reliant on ultra processed foods, and you can see it here. It's a battle. And it's mainly the hyperpalatability. It's easy to overeat it. Even you look at the calorie looks fine, but you eat two of them instead of one. If it was fruit, it's very tough to eat real food. That's too much. Try eating a bowl of strawberries, watermelon, etc. So that's the challenge here. Anything to add on here, Angela? You have quite experience in this topic from your personal experience, and Dr. Curnew as well.
I will definitely come back to this.
Sure.
But yeah, it's difficult to say the least.
Of course. All right, we'll come back to it. Let's move on. Pass it off to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So, like we were talking about, in the big picture of things, not all foods affect our health in the same way. And when we talk about diet quality, we are talking about the overall patterns, what your plate looks like most of the time, not just one single meal. So, high quality foods. If you think of your diet like the fuel that you put in your car, high quality foods are like premium fuel. They keep our engine running smoothly. So this would look like protein, fiber, whole grains, veggies, versus lower quality fuel, which might get us moving, but it can cause wear and tear to our engine over time. And this looks like ultra processed foods, red meats, excess sugar and salt. And so many of our choices, like Rad touched on, our environment plays a huge role. There's fast food on every corner. We have larger portion sizes at restaurants. Like Dr. Curnew is going on a cruise, and there's going to be a wide selection of very tasty foods. And we all have busy schedules too, and this makes it easy to slip into lower quality patterns. Let's go next slide. Thank you. And large studies really show that this really matters. People who eat a higher quality diet can cut their risk of heart disease by about 20% in this one study, but other studies show it can be up to 29%. And high diet quality also helps to lower cholesterol and stabilize our blood sugar, which are both critical for our heart health. And when researchers say that our diet quality can lower all-cause mortality, this means that people who eat higher quality diets are less likely to die early from any cause, not just heart disease, but also things like cancer and diabetes or other illnesses. And what's great is that even small improvements can make a measurable difference. Dr. Curnew, would you like to talk a little bit more about diet quality and its effect on heart health?
Yeah, so I think is that is I like the fact you're talking about food versus just composition, how much protein, carbohydrates. So basically is that if you get fruits and vegetables, no one would argue that is probably uh, the panacea of really good healthy food. You know, eating beans is probably best. Harvard just came out with a study about physicians and nurses, and they have long-term follow-up, and it turns out is that one of the worst foods turns out to be meat in general. We talk about processed meats being bad, but just simply meats are bad food. And there's also meta-analysis of eating good whole grains. All the micronutrients are cardiovascular protective. You know, fiber is a good filling amount. Most of us eat a fraction of the fiber that we should be eating, less than 10 to 15 grams a day. We should double that without even thinking about this. And you're talking about the Mediterranean diet as being a wonderful diet, and that's by some people it's being ranked as the number one diet in the world. The DASH is a very good diet as well. Not that much dissimilar, but that's been to stop hypertension. And so I think you can measure in so many ways. And to me is that I find certain foods very addictive. It's interesting, our eating pattern throughout the day changes as the day goes on. Our cravings change, and you know the best time window to eat would probably be somewhere between 8 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the afternoon. But I'm a nighttime eater no matter what I do, and we talk about intermittent fasting, having a fasting period of 16 hours being ideal for many of us. Um, I can't stop eating at nighttime. So what I found, and I found my quality of life is so much better, is that I exercise first thing in the morning between 6 and 7, and I just drink coffee till sometime in the mid-afternoon or so when I feel energized. There's so many ways of approaching that, and you should need to figure things out. So you're going to tell us a little bit more about from micronutrients, um, and we'll learn more about this. So we can go on and on, but I want to hear what you have to say at this point in time.
Yes. Um, I wanted to ask Rad if it's possible to
I just
record.
approved it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you. Should should I start a little earlier, like go back, or is it okay to record from here?
I can send you the recording actually. I'm recording as well.
Okay,
You
okay,
can keep
great.
going.
Sorry,
No
just
worries.
here. So if you got it, then I'm not going to record the
Sure. Go
screen.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. So thank you very much for the input, Dr. Curnew. This connects to this next point. How do we actually measure something as broad as diet quality? So researchers use different scoring systems to keep things objective. And here's an example of three. We have the Healthy Eating Index, we have the Mediterranean Diet Score, and we have the DASH Diet Score, which was designed to help lower blood pressure. And while each have their differences, they all point us towards similar healthy eating patterns. Next slide, please. So if we think of diet quality scoring, sort of like different teachers grading the same assignment. Each one uses a slightly different rubric, but they all have the same goal. So this is a screenshot of how each one of these guidelines would score points based on what is available, what your intake is in your diet. So the Healthy Eating Index scores out of 100 points, and it gives a higher score for things like, let's look at dairy, for example. It wants to include dairy as part of your diet, whereas the Mediterranean diet score, scored out of 9 points, doesn't emphasize dairy at all because it focuses more on olive oil and fish. And the DASH diet encourages low-fat dairy because it provides calcium. So there's different ways to look at our diet quality, but there are many similarities across these and all the other major guidelines as well. Next slide, please. While the details are a little bit different, the message is the same. We want to build a diet around whole, nutrient-rich foods, and we want to limit processed, sugary, or foods filled with saturated fat. This is what Canada's Food Guide recommends us to eat now: a half of our plate with veggies and fruits, a quarter with protein, a quarter with whole grains, and water as our drink of choice. There's nuance when it comes to fat. Fats are essential for our brain and our hormonal health, but all the guidelines agree that saturated fats are to be limited and avoided. And healthy fats, those that are unsaturated, those that we can find in avocado, olive oil, or nuts, may be healthy options, but it also depends on our personal health context. For example, someone with high cholesterol may need to limit all kinds of fat, even the healthy ones. So there is nuance here.
When we talk about saturated fat, for most of us, just think about this: that fats that are liquid at room temperature are so-called healthy fats. Fats that are hardened at room temperature are unhealthy fats. So saturated fats probably have the most effect on rising cholesterol. So That's basically all the high-fat dairy products. So I always think about just calories. A glass of skim milk is 90 calories. A glass of regular milk is twice that many calories. So just half the calories, and skim milk being a healthier choice from calories and probably from a health perspective. Um, Things like butter and margarines, they're both unhealthy food. Butter is a saturated fat and it's unhealthy. Margarine is unsaturated fat, but it's still 100% fat and it's a processed fat, and we need that as well. All the meat fats, for instance, are unhealthy fats. Um, and Harvard just came out with a meta-analysis, and basically it's talking about all meats are not a health choice. So if you really want to be healthy, is have red meat once a week or less. If you have the processed meats, like, from hot dogs, salamis, and those things, they taste good, but they're basically cancer on a stick, and so those are things to avoid. So we don't use butter or margarine at home, or try not to. I'm just having some corn on the cob plain, no butter, no nothing on that. Um, I drink skim milk. I drink soy milk. I used to drink a lot of oat milk but I sort of cut down on oat milk because it's a rich in sugar and it brings that can spike up my blood sugars. And To me, the two healthiest forms of protein in my mind are beans that you can see over here, and fish. But you can see half that plate being vegetables, and the non-starchy vegetables are ideal. And my problem is just too much of everything. Um, so um, tell us some more pearls.
Yeah. So on our next slide, we're going to look at this in the context of those taking GLP-1s. So our plate looks a little bit different if we're taking GLP-1s. We want to prioritize protein. And as Dr. Curnew talked about, meat is not always the healthiest protein option, even though that's what we may think about when we think of protein, we think of meat. Dr. Curnew, would you like to share your favorite plant-based sources of protein?
Well, number one is beans. So you mentioned black beans, lentils, and soya has the highest protein content of all beans. Uh, Greek yogurt's actually a good choice, and the low-fat forms. And I'm really trying to eat all the fatty fish as well. So salmon, mackerel, sardines. And one of the things I'm thinking about is a different, different fasting. So there's this person on the internet that does a sardine fast for 3 days. And I'm just thinking, I'm going to basically have fatty fish, sardines, or trout, and salmon with salad. I'm going to try that for 3 days, one day. With water is my number one thing. I haven't done that yet, but I'm kind of curious to try that. And um, Instead of whole eggs. Eggs are a good healthy food, but the egg yolk has cholesterol content and it may be potentially harmful. So I'm trying to eat more egg whites. So that's what I do. Um, and one of the problems is if something's on sale, I don't count the calories. That's not a good idea. And so I got to be careful. What about yourself? Where do you
Yeah,
get your protein from?
I really like adding a can of chickpeas to almost any meal that I make because I find it doesn't affect flavor, but it can be a great way to add a source of protein to my meals, and I really like that. I also really like having a bean salad handy in the fridge to snack on, just a quick way to make it easy to incorporate fiber and protein. Legumes are great for both. That just to add them into my day really easily. So we also want to prioritize protein because we want to prevent any nutritional gaps. So taking GLP-1s may decrease our hunger, and if we only manage to eat one or two small meals a day, and if those meals don't have any protein, let's say they're just toast and fruit, you may feel weak and you may lose muscle over time. But if those small meals are centered around protein, we really want to preserve your muscle and support satiety and stable energy throughout the day. So it's important to prioritize protein.
For those who don't know, GLP-1s are Ozempic-like medications. So Ozempic and now Mounjaro are the two big things, and they really have great abilities to suppress appetite. That it's remarkable category medication for some people. It's changed many people's lives. But you're right. When you calorie restrict, roughly a third of the weight loss turns out to be muscle mass, and having more protein helps. But more importantly, what helps even more is that resistance training, moving muscles. Um, and it's sad that very few of us are actually lifting. And something I started a few years ago is that, I don't want to become an old man. And basically, a individual who just walks for exercise or bike rides is a good starting point. But you're losing muscle. Between 30 and 70, you will lose 50% of your muscle mass if you're not careful. That means you're going to fall more. That means you're going to end up in a nursing home. And we know that a third of people that are senior citizens fall on a regular basis, and that 25% of Canadians end up in a nursing home. And so the best way to do is keep your ideal body weight, and lift, pull bands, do push-ups, and that's such a key factor. And thanks for pointing out, these are some of the foods there. So I'm going to have more beans. I need to have more bean soups. I just had some salad here, and I put some chicken right now, but I put a lot of beans and soybeans on that point in time, and I try to eat fatty fish about 3 or 4 times a week. Um, and Rad, what do you do?
Yeah, I know I try to actually prioritize chicken right now. Chicken and turkey is what I'm trying to focus on, and less snacking with nuts because nuts are quite calorie dense. Those are my areas of focus at this moment.
I kind of like egg whites as well. So, you get these cartons of egg whites, and I put all sorts of vegetables in there, put in the microwave for a few minutes, and I have myself a, uh, a cheap man's omelet. And
That's
so,
something I
but
haven't tried, and it's something on my food bucket list actually to try that egg white. I've never tried it. Angela, have you at all? No, the egg
Yes, I
white.
have.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Alrighty.
Yes, I have. I have to add a bit of seasoning to make it to my liking, but
No, of course. I mean,
um,
it's egg whites,
it's
right?
really great. Yes, my secret is oregano. I like adding oregano to my eggs and my egg whites. So next, we are going to shift talking about uh, what to eat, but we want to talk about how much to eat and when. So the same foods that can improve our diet quality. A great news is that they also keep us fuller for longer. So it's win-win. So let's now explore how hunger and fullness work. So, hunger is our body's way of saying it needs fuel. It's like our alarm clock. Appetite is the desire to eat, which can be driven by the smell of a bakery or our mood or even just out of habit. Fullness is the physical feeling of our stomach stretching, and satiety is how long our last meal keeps us satisfied until the next one. So, feeling hungry, there are many hormones at play, but here are some of the big ones. Ghrelin, actually, let's start with leptin. Leptin is our fullness hormone. So, it's akin to when we're filling our car with fuel and the pump clicks and it lets us know that the gas tank is full. That is what leptin does for us. It lets us know that we're full and it suppresses our appetite further. And then we have insulin. Insulin is released after a meal and it does signal fullness. It also helps move the sugar from our food into our cells to give us energy. Then we have ghrelin. Ghrelin is our main hunger hormone. It's like our hunger alarm clock. It rises before meals to let us know it is time to eat. And then we have stress, which is a hormone. Um, uh, stress, cortisol is a stress hormone, and that can confuse our system and can make us crave high calorie foods. So it's a balancing act as well, the energy we put in and the energy we take out. Um, it's a balance of all these hormones. It's almost like a thermostat that keeps our house comfortable, and these hormones are sort of that thermostat for our eating. So let's take a look at these two ideas a little bit closer. We're going to look at fullness and satiety. So, fullness again is how packed our stomach feels right after we eat, and satiety is how long that feeling lasts. For example, candy is not very filling, it's not very satiating, and it doesn't, we can get hungry again really quickly. Whereas chicken, it might be a little bit more filling and may keep us full for longer. So these two sound very similar. These two concepts sound very similar. So what would a mismatch look like? This might look like eating a big bag of popcorn. And our stomach might feel really full because of the volume. But since popcorn digests pretty quickly, you might be hungry again really soon. So that's almost like filling our gas tank with air, and it makes us feel really full, but it wouldn't run for very long. And on the other hand, we have a protein shake, which might not take up a lot of space in our stomach, but we might stay satisfied for hours. And that's sort of like putting a small amount of really high quality fuel in our tank. It doesn't look like much, but it can last a long time. The best meals usually give us both a comfortable feeling of fullness and last a very long time until our next meal, which is usually around 3 to 4 hours later. You might feel hungry again. That's how you know your previous meal gave you that satiety. We're also going to look at um we're also going to look at emotional eating. And Rad, would you like to introduce this
Yeah, so I
topic?
just want to put a little picture here on the right. You can see it doesn't quite fit the slide here, but it's a nice humorous point to put here that many times you go to the fridge, you go to the cupboard, try to look for snacks, and much of that is not because of the actual ne- the actual need for food, but it's appetite, it's cravings, sometimes boredom, or sometimes late night eating, as you said, Dr. Curnew. I think yours is a little bit different. You have a busy schedule, so you come home and you eat all your calories then, or some of it. But for many of us, it's more about habits and time, and emotional eating is tough. Angela, you told me that it's not one thing you can do, it's a team approach, and depending on how you feel, that also depends on um, the tool you use. So if it's from anger, if it's from stress, that changes things a bit. But tell us more.
Sure. So there's hunger, which builds gradually, can be satisfied by many foods. And then there's cravings, which can come suddenly and often for very specific foods, usually sweets or salty snacks. And emotional eating is something many of us do. We can turn to food for comfort during stress, sadness, or even boredom, which can be normal sometimes. The challenge comes when food becomes the main way that we cope. And that can create a cycle where stress leads to eating, which brings guilt, which causes more stress, which causes more eating. Over time, this pattern can crowd out healthier coping tools like exercise or relaxation techniques, and it becomes an unhealthy coping mechanism. And if you notice that emotional eating is something that you struggle with, it's a good idea to seek extra support. And that might mean talking to your doctor, a dietitian, or a counselor who can help with stress management and the underlying cause why you may be turning to food for to cope with stress. Food can soothe in the moment, but it doesn't fix anything underneath. And being aware of these patterns is the first step to changing them. So, we're going to look at mindful eating and how this can improve diet quality. So, mindful eating simply means slowing down, paying attention to our hunger cues, and asking, am I eating because I'm hungry, or is it just out of habit? Or am I seeking comfort? And research can show us that mindful eating helps us naturally choose more high quality foods and eat in balance without actually putting a rule to it. Actually, I do want to talk about that slide a little bit more. So, mindful eating can also look at observing how foods make us feel. For example, if we eat something and we feel energized versus sluggish after. And we also want to be mindful about what we're putting into our bodies, and we want to look for choices that give us lasting fullness, that satiety that we talked about from fiber and whole foods. And we want to curb this mindless eating of low quality foods like chips and sweets. And we want it to be balanced. So there's less guilt and there's more curiosity. Maybe you want to try different foods, but being mindful about our foods and not using it as a way to cope. So, this is a tool called the hunger scale that allows us to pause and check in with our natural hunger cues so we can make better choices aligned with what we want our diet quality to be. It's almost like a fuel gauge, which I've talked about many times in this webinar. So, on zero, we have empty, we are completely very, very, very hungry to the point we're feeling dizzy and nauseous. In the middle, four, five, six, we have neutral, not hungry, not full. And 10, we have painfully full, almost feeling like you want to throw up or even throwing up. And so our hunger throughout the day fluctuates. And we want to stay in the middle. We don't want to go too low. We don't want to go to empty. And even feeling very, very full is not a very comfortable feeling. So the goal is to start eating around 3 and stop eating around 7, where we are really where we stay comfortable and our body can handle the amount of food we're putting in. Without checking in with yourself, it could go something like this. So you're sitting down at family dinner, you start out hungry around a 3 on the hunger scale. The food tastes great, conversation is flowing, and you keep eating even after you reach a 7. And before you know it, because you were distracted, you're at a 9 or a 10. You're uncomfortably full. But if you had paused mid-meal and asked yourself, am I full? Am I comfortably full? You may have stopped at comfortable fullness and you may have not overate and overate those extra calories as well. So we want to learn to align our hunger with how we're actually feeling and not eating mindlessly. So part of this is to honor our hunger. So if we wait until we're at 0 or 1, we're more likely to eat until we're at 9 or 10. But if we are at a 3, we're more likely to stop eating when we're comfortably full. So it's a spectrum, but it's also really important to consider that if you wait until you're starving, you're also more likely to reach for unhealthy foods and you're more likely to eat until you're uncomfortably full. And that might sound familiar for a lot of people. I know it sounds familiar to me. Extreme hunger can make healthy choices harder to make. So our we might crave savory foods or sweet foods, and then um, it disconnects us from our hunger cues. As well, over restriction and waiting until we're really hungry to eat because we wanted to skip a meal, that can trigger overeating. And how this looks like with GLP-1s is that um, our hunger cues might feel a little bit muted. So for GLP-1s and other barriers like stress or busy schedules or other medical conditions, we might not be connected to our hunger cues, but it's still important to have regular balanced meals and prioritize protein in order to have a good diet quality. And so, another facet of mindful eating is to feel our fullness and to notice signs that we've had enough, that we're satisfied, and that we're comfortable. And this can look like eating half of our plate and then pausing halfway to check in with ourselves if you're full and if you want to continue eating or if you want to save your other half for later. So we want to stop around a 6 or a 7 instead of stopping when we're at a 9 or a 10. And this takes awareness to break these automatic eating habits. And we also want to consider that nutrition is not all or nothing. There's a lot of flexibility, and we can make a lot of swaps. So we can choose grilled over fried foods. We can choose sparkling water instead of soda. We can choose whole grains instead of refined. So these small swaps can add up and improve our diet quality because, again, it's about overall patterns. And if we start finding that we like quinoa and adding that more into our diet, then our diet quality improves. So small swaps add up to big change.
Just want to share a quick thought here, Angela. When you said that last part, small swaps make a big change. I've seen some of these comparisons on social media where exactly the same diets, same meals, same recipes, One is 3,000 calories, the other one is 2,500 calories. And it's all because of these small swaps, condiments, oils, how you cooked it. Was it grilled? Was it sauteed? So the details actually matter. And so when you think about how much I'm eating, it's not always about what's on the plate. You could have the exact same food on the plate, exact same portions, but how you prepared it matters. And that's probably the difficulty of why many of us can't estimate calories correctly, or we get stuck and the weight's not changing. Um, yeah, it just made me think of that. Sorry, go ahead. Thanks for your
Yeah,
thoughts.
that's a great point. And when we're quantifying nutrition, quantifying calories, that can be a little bit overwhelming as well. But if we swap out, let's say, a store-bought condiment for homemade and we make it with Greek yogurt, we know that nutritionally we are doing better than we would if we opted for store-bought or ultra processed, right? So sometimes it is about small swaps and what we can do and doing it. Dr. Curnew, anything to add about small swaps that you've made that make a big difference?
I think you guys nailed it very, very well. I know what I'm supposed to do, but sometimes the devil in me wants to it just goes to the wrong food. I'm guilty at nighttime, so I'm hoping that I won't eat anything more tonight. After this webinar, I'm going to go brush my teeth, floss my teeth, put some mouthwash, and put my night guard on. And I wish I can have a key and lock my mouth till morning time. Um, we have some nuts here. We have some peanut butter. We have some whole wheat bread. We have some protein bars. Hopefully, I won't have any of that tonight. Um, and I ate half my corn and had lots of salad. Tonight, I had protein with chicken. I don't usually eat much chicken, but that's all we had, and we had some leftover sandwiches, so I had some of that. So and had some kombucha. Um,
Dr. Carney,
and
something I've learned from you is the balsamic vinegar. That's a swap. I'm not sure if you've made that swap, but that's an example I've
Yeah.
taken that you can add to
I
things. Yeah.
here so Costco makes great balsamic vinegar. It is 45 calories
Yeah.
per tablespoon. I put a little bit of that in there. I'm also using apple cider vinegar at this point in time. In my salad and putting dressing, I put a few grapes in there from the swaps there as well. I'm not sure you know these bags of salads that you get. We get about six of those a week. And the farmer down the road has corn on the cob, a dozen corn for $10. So, um, and I really like them too because what happens, I take the husks off and give those to our sheep and our goats and our horses there. So it's fun there, and I know what I'm supposed to do, and but once I get started. So I hopefully tonight I'll have the the flexibility and my hunger level right now or my appetite is I'm at an 8 right now. So hopefully I'll stay that way. And if I go down to 3, I hope I don't eat anything more till tomorrow. So plan to be at the lifting weights tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning. So my goal is just have nothing more to eat tomorrow morning, coffee, and then after gliding tomorrow afternoon, I'll eat again. But that's my plan. Will that happen? I don't know. We'll see.
Thank you, Dr. Curnew. Wish you the best. You can do it. So, we're now going to look at breaking automatic eating habits. And much of eating is a habit. We grab snacks while we're watching TV, or eating because 6 o'clock is eating time. And this can be automatic eating. Sometimes it's okay, it's part of our schedule, and sometimes it's not. And it's not okay when we are constantly reaching for ultra processed foods, which are high in calories and have low satiety. And everything is okay in moderation, but if we open a bag of chips while we're watching TV and we finish the entire bag of chips, it might be a sign that we can uh, use the tools like the hunger scale to pause and ask ourselves, are we really eating because we're hungry? Is there something else I can do instead? Is there a different food I could swap this for? So there's a lot of habits that go into our automatic eating, and that really depends on your schedule and your eating habits. But simple habits like using smaller plates or prepping healthy snacks can help us shift our routine. Putting our water bottle, like I like this, putting my water bottle on my desk right in front of me reminds me to drink water. And so doing things that fit our routine that can contribute to healthier eating patterns.
And it just gave me another thought. Something I've done is um, some of these ultra processed foods, ice creams, donuts, chips, if I ever have them, part of that flexibility, it's on an occasion. You have to go out for it, right? So I try to not to buy them. Uh, I I can't be flexible. If something's bought, it's going to be eaten. So my idea is you can't buy it at all. If you're gonna have it, you're gonna have to travel for it. Ice cream, don't have ice cream here. You're gonna have to travel, go get ice cream at a store, etc. Something like that. That has helped because my downfall was brownies. I always use this example, Costco brownies. I used to absolutely adore them, and it's not like I can buy that and control myself or have them Sundays. It just doesn't work. And I've seen that in some other people too with sweet cravings, where and Dr. Curnew, you have a sweet tooth that a little bit turns into more, and none is actually better for them. So just no sweets at all. They feel like it's easier to control the sweet cravings instead of having a little bit of this, having a little bit of that. But I'm sure that's pretty personalized too.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rad. That's a great example, actually. When you have to work a little bit harder, it really makes you question, how badly do I really want this? Maybe I'm just bored, or maybe I can reach for a fruit instead,
Yeah, you want to make
to
it tough.
satisfy
And
it.
some people who buy it, they just put it in, not in the kitchen, the in the top cupboard. You can't reach it. Behind the fridge, I can't put it in behind the fridge, but somewhere less accessible, under the bed. I mean, you can't do
Yeah.
that unless you have some extra chips. Put it under the bed, behind everything else. That's some unconventional techniques I haven't done, but that's just my creative thoughts there. Go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
really out of sight, out of mind. And
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
unfortunately happened with my water bottle. So now I need it in my
Yeah,
line
yeah,
of
yeah.
sight, put the healthy food in our line of sight, and maybe it can help rewire our habits. And now let's look at the satiety index. So this was an old study, 1995, and it tested how well different foods keep us full. So um, participants ate around 240 calorie portions of various foods and rated their fullness every 15 minutes for 2 hours. And researchers needed a gold standard, and they picked white bread. That was their baseline. That was 100. And if things are more filling, it would be higher than 100. And if things were less filling, they would be lower than 100. So this is an example of some of the results. And it's just the scores are not really important. They're outdated now, but the principle still stands that some foods are more filling than others, and we can choose what we want to eat on the basis of how full they will make us, and we can maybe curb appetite and craving in an hour from now. If we eat something more filling, maybe 3 hours from now, we'll be hungry instead. So, foods high in protein, fiber, and water content keep us satisfied longer. And ultra processed foods give these short bursts that don't last. So, in this specific experiment, they found that boiled potatoes were 3 times more filling than white bread, and croissants score the lowest. They don't keep you full for very long. And again, these were based on 240 portion sizes and not typical serving sizes. But the fact of the matter is that satiety is something that we can focus on for healthy habits as well.
And something you told me tonight, Angela, which was this is outdated in the sense that instead of focusing on specific foods, you focus on the macronutrients, right? Protein and fiber plus water is more satiating. So think of that. But what this is useful for is to know some of those low satiating foods, which is maybe not news to us, right? A lot of carbs and the the white breads, the white flour, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And we are going to take another look at protein because it is so important. Protein is the most filling macronutrient. It keeps us satisfied longer, it slows our digestion, controls our blood sugar, and preserves our muscle while we're losing weight. And so, protein should be the anchor of our meal. Good sources are beans, lentils, egg whites. We talked about that just recently, and we want to aim for at least 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight, or in other terms, that's zero point 0.5 grams per pound of body weight. So for the average person, that would be between 60 and 100 grams of protein per day. And a lot of us are not meeting that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rad.
Actually, that was me who is not meeting it, but I've heard some other people who say that the average American who's eating a lot of ultra processed foods, oddly enough, they're actually getting way above the RDA, the minimum. But the person who has to get more, seniors, people who are in hospitals, more sedentary, they're not getting enough, right? Because as you age, your appetite goes lower, you start to eat less in the earlier stages of life. Dr. Curnew, you're not there yet. Your appetite is still nice and strong, but you see a lot of people, for example, in senior homes, that's where it's more important. But as Dr. Stuart Phillips said, it's still the resistance training that's doing the lion's share of the work. Protein above a certain point is just cherry on the top. You're getting marginal returns.
I don't think we want to get carried away with protein. I think we're in a protein craze right now.
Yeah.
And I think, eating proper protein somewhere between 1 to 1.5 grams a day makes sense if you're trying to lose weight and exercise. But most of us aren't protein deficient in North America. Most of us are exercise deficient. Um, and as you point out, is that 80% of the benefit of growing muscle is through exercise. Probably 20% is from your diet. So if you're not prepared to lift heavy weights, then you're not prepared to age properly, period.
Dr. Curnew is right. There is a great deal of emphasis on protein and not a lot on the other star of the show, which is fiber. And fiber is nature's way of filling us up without piling on calories. Foods high in fiber, like fruits, veggies, oats, beans, they slow our digestion, they add bulk, they keep our energy steady. And pairing fiber with water-rich foods like soups and salads keep us satisfied without overeating and without adding too many calories. So, high fiber diets in many studies are linked to lower weight, lower risk of heart disease, lower cholesterol. And fiber comes in two main types. Both are important. There's soluble fiber and there's insoluble fiber. So, soluble fiber dissolves in water and is almost like a sponge. It forms a gel like in your stomach, and this can slow digestion. And you'll find it in foods like oats, apples, beans, flaxseed. Whereas insoluble fiber is like a broom, it doesn't dissolve in water, it sort of sweeps or pushes our stool. And that is important to keep our digestion moving regularly. And you'll find this in vegetables, whole grains, nuts. And there are many foods that have a mix of both types, and variety is key here because we need both the sponge and the broom for a healthy gut. Dr. Curnew, anything to add on fiber?
You got it, because fiber is one of the things that people go on these high fat diets. They basically avoid the fiber content of food and the micronutrients as well. So there's really a lot of good data that we need to, instead of getting proper protein, but also doubling your fiber content is so important. So show us some foods how we can actually do that.
Sure. Rad, would you like to talk about
Oh yeah, sure, sure.
what types of
So
foods?
fiber, what's the most dense food for fiber? I think broccoli was one. Dark chocolate, so you can see at this figure, dark chocolate, oddly enough, for per 100 grams, it was 10.9 grams of fiber. What's misleading though is that some of the nuts and the seeds they have actually more fiber per their weight, but they're actually calorie dense. Chia seeds is example, almonds are an example. So when we talk about fiber, it's just a variety of all the greens, all the colorful stuff. The rest of it, the fiber intake is pretty much the same. And so again, just think about that plate. With every meal, you prioritize protein and fiber, about 30 grams a day. You don't have to do the math as long as you're combining it. And Dr. Curnew, I think you're doing it quite well, where the snacks are the fiber-rich foods. Whereas many of us snacks or maybe other things. For me, it's nuts, too calorie dense, has a little bit of fiber, maybe not too much, and maybe not enough.
So it's interesting when I go to the Ticats or the Forge football game is that the the only really good foods there is coffee from Tim Hortons with milk, and they have this vegetarian chili. They give you such a small amount for there, but so what I do is I sneak in some nuts, and actually I brought in to the last Ticat game that they lost by 1 point. I brought some figs in. Um, and because it's really hard, you mentioned that the smell of food, all this food smells
Yeah,
delicious. And so you just get hungry there. So um, I brought some
that
peanuts
that's
and
where you want to be flexible.
yeah, you have to hide them on the way in there. So and you bring your water bottle, but you have to line up for 5 miles to get water there and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
interesting. So I wish the Ticat Stadium would have some of these. Or the fourth place some of these foods here. So these are take a look at this. Wonderful. And tell us about the science of ultra processed foods at this stage.
Yeah,
I
this is
always
a
think about
fascinating area. So we can see the top left person, we see
before
Kevin
before
Hall. Yeah, go ahead.
before you go on there is that there's so many interventions that actually can decrease 500 calories. You're going to show that replacing real food with processed food saves you about 500 calories. But starting each meal with 2 glasses of water or 6 glasses of water a day will actually decrease your caloric intake by 500 calories a day. So it's another pearl. But tell us more about the processed food industry here.
Sure, sure. And just on top of what you said, the other approach I've heard of, and I haven't used this myself, which was just to take the guessing work out of the game and make it simple for folks. Take one thing that you eat absolutely every day, it's a commonplace in your regimen, and then cut that portion by 200 to 500 calories just to simplify, then you keep everything else the same. And for some people it works, and for many people it's the greens, it's the bread, where it's a constant, and you cut that out, everything else is the same. And that can work for a little bit. Maybe a little bit of pounds, but it's not always sustainable. But for ultra processed foods, what you can see here is Kevin Hall is an NIH researcher. NIH is the National Institute of Health in the US. They have a lot of funding and space and time and the best minds in the world to do a lot of good research. Right now, things are changing there a little bit with some different leadership. But before that, Kevin Hall did some nice research. He took 20 adults, healthy, BMI of 27, 30-year-olds. He randomized them to 2 weeks on an ultra processed diet, 2 weeks on a minimally processed diet, and actually, oddly enough and appropriately enough, they controlled for calories, sugar, fat content, and energy density. But despite that, people spontaneously, when they were given the choice, they eat about 500 calories more a day. And you can see some of the lines here. Ad libitum means you're free to eat as much as you want. You can see the lines are not touching, right? They're higher than each other. So the key takeaway is that yes, we're calorie conscious when you go look at the nutrition labels. That's good when you're calorie conscious. But if you're picking the ultra processed foods more than the minimally processed foods and the whole foods, spontaneously you're going to eat more. And the bottom reason for that, the bottom line of it, is that they're more hyperpalatable, not satiating enough, not full in fiber, not full of protein. It's not as complex as we thought it was. But it's quite important to know this, and this research hasn't been done before. It's the first one to show that even beside calories, ultra processed foods have this thing about them, this feature that makes people overeat. Maybe it's not a surprise to people, but it was good to quantify it and say, hey, 500 calories extra. In 2 weeks, people put 2 pounds. And then when they were switched back to the unprocessed, they actually lost 2 pounds very nicely, which was interesting to see.
But one thing you can do, he's also shown, is that you take processed food and you add good things to them, you actually eat less. So you can see that hamburger on your left. Well, one of my treats is that when Harvey's has their special of, two hamburgers or two veggie burgers for $5. I don't think that's going to happen again. There'll probably be more than that now, but they have this nice veggie uh, hamburger on a whole wheat bun. And what you can do is that you can superload that with extra vegetables. And you can, instead of French fries, you can get a garden salad with that, without the dressing. So you can actually eat some processed food, but adding healthy, good things. Um, Tend to buy a vegetarian pizza and I do that with all the vegetables, but then I bring my own vegetables to put on top of that too as well and start off with a salad. Again, if you start off every meal with a salad or beans, and actually beans actually gives you an Ozempic-like effect, makes you feel full. So these are ways that you can actually modify your diets right now. And it's hard because no one's going to argue that this food that tastes really good. Um, we eat more. So think about ways that you can, if it has too many chemicals there, that your emulsifiers that prolong shelf life, and they're probably, and the research on health isn't that great at this point. We don't know a lot about these sorts of things. So when you process, and also liquid calories, volumetrics of food. You mentioned initially soup. Tomato-based soups make you feel full. Like today, we had some nice soups from Denager, but yesterday we had a bunch of bean burritos and things at the office, and there's leftover salad and tomato. So I add some water to the soup and had some leftover spices, and just added extra vegetables to everything. And um, um, one thing is that I don't really have a craving for alcohol. I have a craving for salty, sweet things. That's my thing there. So. And it would be nice to have a Snickers bar, but they're deadly. Um, if you can just have a quarter of a Snickers bar, good for you. I'll take your quarter and everybody else's quarter. So I like this idea, like you said, not having it around. And so so you can see that group one about the minimal processed food. The only thing about me about nuts, I love nuts. I try to avoid the salt content of it, but it's hard to do. But um, I find it's hard to eat just small 6 or 7 nuts. I'll have 6 or 7 handfuls if I'm not careful.
Yeah,
Um,
it resonates with me as well. I put the slide here to show that not all ultra processed foods, not all processed foods are necessarily bad. So this good classification here. In fact, Kevin's Hall study, the one on this slide here, was based on this classification system. So you want to have a lot of the group one and the group twos, the whole food ingredients, the things that you can find in the tree or it grows on the ground. But you don't want to be too scared of some of the minimally processed foods. And so this distinction is a little bit broad, and I'm not quite sure. I have to look into this for some specific definitions, but by and large, the simplicity is what you can see here. That not just because has some level of processing to it, it's not necessarily bad. Right? You have to look at the chemistry behind it, what's in it, how much sodium, how much saturated fat, how many calories, is it hyperpalatable? Those things matter. All right. Habits now.
but
How do we? Yeah, go ahead.
that the food industry has done a lot of research about feeding us, and they've actually done some imaging of the brain, and the food they tend to sell us as the ones that make us eat more. The food industry is not interested in making you healthier; they're interested in selling you food. Um, And so they've designed foods that are relatively inexpensive, that long shelf lives, don't go bad, um, but are very calorie dense, often sweet, often salty. Ketchup is a good example. You put ketchup on anything, you'll tend to eat more of that. Um, and so they design a whole sets of foods um, that are really good and very addictive in my mind. So you mentioned a Snickers bar, ice cream, chicken nuggets, liquid calories from pop and things of that nature. They're very hard to resist. Um, where it's hard to gain 10 pounds by eating 10 pounds of broccoli. Um, so ways to think about how to what to keep around the house and how to batch cook these foods. And if you just put broccoli to everything that you eat, life is good. And have a salad without dressing is also another good thing too as well. And probably one of the dressings you should think about is vinegar. Vinegar actually helps decrease insulin production, and so these are ways of manipulating food. So keep going. Now, cravings. Oh, society. That's where I get stuck. Tell us, how do I control this?
So, yes, most eating starts with the same cue, which is hunger. But what we choose next, the routine can shape our outcome. So, we start with the cue, hunger, and our old routine might be reaching for the nearest snack, which might be a cookie. And we are rewarded with a short energy burst. And but late we might crash quickly and then we're craving more junk food. So we're hungry and that's one cycle. But changing our habits might look like we feel hungry and we reach for something different this time. Something, maybe a healthy swap. And the reward might be, so for example, if it's an apple with some peanut butter, our reward might be energy, but then there's no crash. We might feel more healthy. We might feel happy that we made a conscious decision about our eating habits. And later on, when we're hungry again, because we've already broken that ice, it might be easier for us to make a healthy decision again. So, same cue, but and it's also like changing the path that you take to work. At first, it might be strange, but soon it might become your default. So, our habits can be reshaped. The cue is the same, the hunger, but the routine can really change the cycle that we're in. And like Dr. Kunu touched on, food, processed food, ultra processed food is really meant to be addicting and to keep us buying it, keep us spending our money, and it makes it really, really difficult to resist. So these small changes, doing what you can, and just being mindful of what you are putting in your body, and also being curious and open to trying swaps if you've never tried them before, if you've tried baking instead of frying something. You know, these small swaps add up. Rad, would you like to take it
Oh
away
yeah, sure,
about
sure. I
healthy?
thought you were gonna talk. Yeah, so habit stacking, I'm a big fan of this. So the reason making habits are difficult is because of the unfamiliarity. It's going back to this slide, this loop hasn't been formed yet. If you want to break a habit, you have to put a disruptor in there, right? Or change the environment. If you had, Dr. Curnew, maybe you can self-reflect here and help us also when you're thinking about late nighttime eating, is it the same place? Is there a cue involved? So reflecting on those a little bit and then changing it. That's one way. The other one is habit stacking, where to get rid of something, you add it to something you already do. You brush your teeth at, let's say, 10 p.m. before going to bed. You do it just when you get to home, and that prevents late time eating, for example, where you pair something with something else. People want to do exercise. You walk right before the meal, before dinner, and not after. You're going to be sluggish. Of course, you can do it after. But some of these examples where something you already do every day, you're going to do, and you want to add something to it, and you stack it. And some of these squares here are nice examples. This way you get rid of that difficulty of starting. For a lot of people, starting is the challenge. Um, and the other one is doing it with other people. And that's key, I think, for many long-lasting habits like exercise, eating especially. Many of us eat with people, eat with family, especially at night, sometimes at other times. So, it's complex, but you have to have a buddy. If you can't have a buddy, you have you know, an accountability partner, lots of things to do.
Your accountability partner could even be your doctor or your cardiologist. I see we have a friend that joined our webinar. Hi. Okay. Um, Thank you, Rad, for that.
Oh, I see
I
what you're
think
talking about. I was looking for a person. Is it oh yeah, yeah, sure. Perfect.
yes, it's Dr.
Alrighty. Hello, hello. Yeah, good. All right, let's
Um,
go ahead.
yes. So we have many hidden influences that can also affect our appetite. Our lack of sleep can increase our hunger hormones. Stress, cortisol pushes us towards comfort food. Sometimes thirst can even be mistaken for hunger. Maybe we're really just thirsty. If you have a glass of water and see how you feel after, maybe you were actually thirsty and not hungry. And then we have physical activity, which is an influence, but a good influence. This actually improves our appetite regulation, it improves satiety, it helps our metabolism. Um, and so there are many influences on our hunger, and it's important to know where you fall in this context. And the last thing I want to touch on is that one of the biggest barriers to lasting change is feeling guilt. Labeling foods as or beating ourselves up after eating bad foods can usually lead to more feelings of guilt and stress and overeating. So, shame doesn't lead, sorry, to healthier habits, but small steps and curiosity do. There is an important truth that some foods are harmful to our heart health, like processed meats and fried foods and soda. But instead of guilt, we can ask ourselves with curiosity, how can I add more heart healthy foods to my day? What do I like to eat that's a little bit more healthier than this? What can I manage? Whatever you can do, it's important to try because you deserve to feel good in your body. You deserve to feel good for your family. You deserve to be healthy. You deserve to live a long life. And it's about progress over perfection here. We want to build healthier habits because we're working with our body. We don't want to be working against it. One meal also doesn't define you. Patterns over time matter the most, and focus on how you feel. And it's it's okay to fall off the bike sometimes. Once you fall off, it doesn't mean you failed. You're just practicing, hop right back on and keep going. Progress over perfection.
I think this is one of the most important slides because people get angry, frustrated at themselves, or whatever. Is that uh, try not to get angry. It's like the Blue Jays lose a game, they win a game. And I think professional sports players are very good at this. Um, um, Tomorrow's a new day, and I feel I've met so many patients today that get angry at themselves. I can't stop smoking. I can't stop eating. I'm not exercising. I like this progress over perfection, and just trying to get better and just not be hard on yourself. So I think this is really pertinent to so many of us, myself included, and things. And I will say this is that is you learn more from your failures than your successes, and but just keep working at it, and don't be so angry at yourself or other people. Try to enjoy the journey a little bit more. And thank you for this slide. I think it's so important.
Yes, I agree. It's important to be gentle with ourselves. We're just human, and we're trying to be healthier and happier, and it's a process. Um, and so, in summary, we touched on improving diet quality as a foundation for our health because it lowers our risk of disease, it protects our heart, has so many benefits. We also looked at hunger and fullness on a scale, and that they are body signals that you can learn to trust and be curious about. We learned that protein and fiber keep us satisfied for longer. It is about habits, not always willpower, but our habits that shape most of our eating choices. We looked at how sleep and stress and hydration and our environment all influence how we eat. And most importantly, we said progress matters more than perfection. Small, consistent steps are key here, and you do what you can and build from there.
Wonderful. So one thing I'm going to put a few plugs right now is that I'm quite impressed with high intensity exercise, interval training. Um, is that there is actually good science that suggests is that walking and running and swimming and cycling are all very good exercising. But bursts of high intensity exercise are so important. So you really you work at maximum efforts for anywhere from 1 to 4 minutes, and you rest for a couple minutes, and you do that with different exercises are so important. Time restricted eating are important. I encourage you to try to look at some of these in your life and see how that works. Um, um, I do some swimming, and I'm quite impressed is that at the pool there's usually a group of 20 women and one guy in the pool doing water aerobics. But the problem is I see most of these people are all having a good time doing exercises, but most of them are overweight. They're not losing weight. Where the people swimming laps and the lane laps are really pushing themselves are the skinnier ones. And I just sort of think is that how you define high intensity versus exercise is really, really important. And I also explore time restricted eating. People who haven't tried Ozempic-like medications is that um, um, they can be a godsend. And most of us want to stop it. If you look at what happens, 80% of people who go on these medications will tend to want to stop or stop. Weight regain, gaining, 70% of what you lost over time is common, but you can learn new behaviors and you can use things intermittently and try new things. So there's so many ways. Um, because right now we're in a bad place. Right now I'm going through a bad time with my eating habits, and um, I'll get out of it. I'm not going to snap myself out of it, but I'm not, um, I'm not feeling guilty or mad at myself. I'm just going to try different things. So this webinar, I hope will remind me to go brush my teeth, floss my teeth, and put my mouth guard on, and have a glass of water, and go to bed soon, and then get up tomorrow morning and start again. And hopefully, when I get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, that I hope I don't get a snack. I'll see what happens. I'll report back to you about that. Yeah, I think having more protein, more fiber is important. Um, and I wish there was no bread in this house. Um, um, I start off with 2 slices, and I can easily go to 6 without even thinking too hard. Um, I either put almond butter or peanut butter on there, but it's still a problem. And I also find weighing myself on a regular basis keeps me on track. Doesn't get me depressed. It's just I find when I don't weigh myself, I tend to gain more weight. So those are helpful things.
Yeah.
And you need to basically lose weight. You need to calorie restrict to keep the weight off. You need to exercise, and that's 60 to 90 minutes most days, and that's a lot.
Of course.
Any
Yeah.
thoughts from anybody else?
No, I was just thinking about that one line while we were talking. I'm not sure who said it about eat food, real food, not too much. I think it's something like that. I think that's a good, simple one-liner for this whole webinar.
Yeah.
So there's
Eat.
one way of thinking of a certain amount of calories to eat, and then you die. You can eat them all very quickly, or you can spread them out over a lifetime.